Module 6 In-Person Customer Service. In-person interactions provide a great opportunity to build rapport with customers. When you talk to a customer on the phone or you exchange emails with a customer, it can be difficult sometimes to get a sense of what the other person is thinking and feeling. But when you talk to a customer in person, you get constant feedback, both verbal and nonverbal. It's easy to tell if you are creating the right impression. Although in-person interactions can be difficult at times, they offer exceptional insights into what the customers want and need. Dealing with at-your-desk requests. Sometimes working in a job that requires customer service will put you on the spot. You can be working hard on something you have had in your planner for days when suddenly a customer turns up at your desk with a problem. It's common in these situations to wonder if you should go ahead and provide the customer with the help they need, thus missing the work you were scheduled to do, or to try and find a way to get rid of the customer so you can get on with what you need to do. In any case like this, the matter of priority arises. There is nothing more unprofessional than turning a customer away and saying, "Sorry, I'm busy. If you want to come back another time, I'm sure I'll be able to fit you in tomorrow, next week, in 10 days' time." The customer has come to see you in person, they consider their problem to be of some importance, and they are relying on you to help them. If the work in hand is really something that cannot wait, you have two options. You can find someone else who will be able to do the work and turn your attention to the customer, or you can find someone to help the customer so that you can get on with your work. It is vital to keep a sense of courtesy whatever you decide to do. The customer who has come all this way to see you will be somewhat unimpressed if you just ask them to take a seat and assign someone to ask what the problem is. However urgent the work you are doing is, you have enough time to speak to the customer, ask them the nature of their problem, and think about how best to bring about a solution. It may be that the difficulty is one that only you can solve. If, however, you can find someone else to help the customer, make sure that you have taken note of the problem and explain it thoroughly to whoever you delegate the matter to. Also ensure that the person you hand them over to is someone who can genuinely solve the problem. Otherwise, it will look like you have simply wriggled out of the situation. Courtesy and competence are essential, whoever deals with the problem. The advantages and disadvantages of in-person customer service. For many companies, customer service is something that is the responsibility of a dedicated department which can only be contacted by telephone, post, or in some cases only by email. For others, the reality is that numbers dictate customer service to be something which is provided in person at the point of sale. Being able to provide customer service in person is essential for these companies. However helpful it would be to have a dedicated set of customer service professionals. That said, being forced to provide customer service in person, as time-consuming as it may be, has its advantages in the circumstances. Whatever else can be said about this way of providing customer services, it does allow a level of personal service that is hard to beat. Speaking to the customer in person rather than on the phone has its drawbacks, and no one would deny this. It keeps professionals away from other work and can lead to them getting drawn into long, complicated discussions which would be better carried out in a less pressured way. However, when it comes to customer confidence, being able to look a customer in the eye and tell them that you will get to the bottom of their problem does enable a certain amount of satisfaction on the part of the customer that is not easy to achieve in any other way. When dealing with customer service issues on the telephone, it is possible, and sometimes irresistible, to put the customer on hold and transfer them to someone else. Anyone who has been the customer in this situation knows how frustrating that can be, especially when they have to relate their problem to another person because it has been poorly communicated. Good customer services rely on being able to maintain the confidence of the customer, assure them that their problem will be solved, and at no extra cost to them. It also allows a personal touch which is hard to achieve any other way. And when it comes to customer retention in future business, a friendly face will have a lot more impact than a disembodied voice or a few lines of text. Using body language to your advantage. In any in-person interaction, body language has a major effect on how people interpret your message and respond to it. Types of body language: eye contact, facial expression, posture, gestures, nodding or shaking your head no. Body language is a controversial topic. There are many people who will swear blind that, whatever anyone else says, the only kind of language that can be trusted is that which is spoken and is written down. However, there are many dedicated body language experts who have made clear and incontrovertible findings that make clear the truth about body language. It is said for a reason that it is possible to lie with your words, but never with your eyes. Whatever you can say to a person vocally, it is always better to be able to back it up by looking them in the eye and making a statement that they can trust. Body language is honest in many ways because it happens by accident. When you are speaking to someone, you are likely to be doing things with your body that you do not even realize you're doing. Ask any seasoned poker player and they will tell you that, in a game which uses few words, the way they know what another player is going to do and what hand they have is by looking at their hands, their face, and their body. Some people touch their face or tug their collar when they are lying. Someone at ease will sit back in their seat and be more open in their posture. A person under pressure will look around themselves more. Whatever you say to a customer, it is important to use body language to your advantage. The way you conduct yourself in the presence of a customer may well have more impact on their confidence in you than anything you say to them. If you look around you when they are relating a problem, it will give the impression that you do not care and only want them to get it off their chest and leave you alone. If you look at them and nod when they say something of importance, they will take from that you are listening to them and are interested in seeing that their problem gets solved. Retaining a customer's confidence is essential, and your use of body language will dictate how successful you are in doing that.
Cora was busy all week. She had a huge report due the next day, and she had fallen a bit behind. A customer named Matt came in with a complaint about an order he had placed that was never delivered. Cora's first thought was to tell him she was too busy to help and to come back later, but she knew that would never do. Instead, she looked to see if anyone else could help him out. The only people that weren't up to their necks in paperwork were not a part of customer service. One of them offered to finish up the report so Cora could help the customer. In a few moments, Cora successfully helped the customer track down the source of the problem and had his goods finally delivered.
Module 7, Giving Customer Service Over the Phone. When you are talking to someone in person, body language makes up a large part, some would say more than half, of your message. But as soon as you pick up the phone, body language becomes irrelevant. The success of your interactions depend almost entirely on your tone of voice and your choice of words. Getting these things right isn't easy, but with a little practice, anyone can learn how to provide excellent customer service over the phone. The advantages and disadvantages of telephone communication. As has previously been mentioned, many companies place their customer service issues in the hands of a dedicated department who can only be contacted in a non-personal manner. Some companies do this by using email and others by way of the mail. In most cases, however, a customer service department will do the bulk of their work over the phone and will have a dedicated call center for this purpose. While this removes the personal element from customer service to a large extent, it would be inaccurate to claim that there is not an advantage to doing things this way. Quite apart from anything else, it does permit some thinking time that you might not get in person. The main disadvantage to this way of doing things is that there is no allowance made for the fact that people are almost always more reassured by speaking to someone in person. The body language we use when trying to transmit reassurance and confidence relies on customers being able to see us. If they relate a problem to you and you are silent while they do so, for obvious reasons of manners and courtesy, they may understandably wonder if you are actually listening. The only way to avoid this becoming a problem is to be as reassuring in your tone of voice as you can. Make clear to the customer that you understand the severity of the situation and that you will do all you can to solve it. Even with this level of understanding, there are some customers who will feel that things take longer to get solved over the phone, and the moment they hang up, their problem will be forgotten about. This is why you must explain to them at each stage of the process what you are doing, why you are doing it, and what will happen next. Solving the problem in the course of one call may be impossible, and you may have to promise them that they will be called back. Some companies make promises like this and fail to follow through on them. This can lead to a loss of confidence in all companies who make promises, and as a result, pressure on those who are good at problem solving. Solving problems over the phone takes dedication and perseverance. Doing the job well and promptly will pay dividends. Telephone etiquette. Customers expect a courteous, helpful response when they call your business. Reviewing the basics of telephone etiquette can remind you about what it takes to provide the kind of response that customers expect. Telephone etiquette. Answer promptly on the third ring at the latest. Before you pick up the phone, end any conversation you are having. Greet the caller, identify yourself, and ask if you can help. Speak clearly in a pleasant tone of voice. Avoid speaking too much. For discussion, what message do you send if you speak too quickly? Give the caller time to explain the reason for the call. Don't interrupt. Don't sound like you're in a hurry. When you need to put someone on hold, ask first, "Can I put you on hold for just a moment?" After you return to the line, thank the customer for holding. If you need to transfer a call, explain what you're doing. When you end a call, let the customer hang up first. This will ensure that you don't cut the customer off prematurely. Telephone etiquette is a major issue in any company that conducts a lot of its business and its customer services over the phone. The main factor in telephone etiquette are, as the word suggests, manners and efficiency. Because most of our conversations are carried out in person, a lot of people feel quite ill at ease when speaking on the phone. Things that they would normally be able to rely on for reassurance, like eye contact and body language, are not easily translated to a phone conversation. It means that dealing with urgent business on the phone can be something of a minefield. If you are required to provide a lot of your customer services over the phone, it is essential that you pay attention to your telephone manner. If you are receiving a call, this will mean responding promptly and making your opening greeting courteous and warm. Rather than simply saying hello or saying the name of your company, you should state the name of the company, your name, and ask how you can help. No matter how many times you have done this, do not race through it and make it sound robotic. It may be commonplace to you, but to the customer, this is an important matter. The fact that the customer cannot see you when you are on the phone does not mean that you can do whatever you like while you are speaking to them. If you are reading something or waving to a friend while on the telephone, it will be clear from your voice that your full attention is not on the call. If, for any reason, you have to speak to someone in the office, first ask the customer to bear with you, and then place them on hold. It is insulting to leave the customer hanging as though they are less important than what you are doing, and this is compounded by leaving them to hear what you are saying to someone else. The impression given is, it doesn't matter, it's only a customer. Because the customer cannot see what you are doing, it is important to keep them posted on what you are doing. If you do not, they will become agitated. Tips and tricks. For some people, dealing with issues over the phone will never be as beneficial as doing it in person. There are many advantages to using the telephone, and in many cases, this has led to over-reliance on the system. This in turn has led to us almost developing a specific form of language when we are on the phone, all the more so in a business setting. Remember, though, that a customer may not be party to this language and that they will have difficulty keeping up with the conversation if you are not careful to keep their needs in mind. Below are some hints to make your telephone etiquette in a business setting as good as it possibly can be. Answer the phone by saying hello or good morning. Often, callers don't hear the first thing you say. If the first thing you say is your name, some people might not catch it. Smile. Yes, of course, the customer can't see you, but smiling gives your voice a more cheerful, enthusiastic tone. It also reminds you to be upbeat and positive. Sound enthusiastic. Try to maintain a positive attitude and let that come through in your voice. Say your name and your phone number clearly. Because people say these things often, they tend to slur them, but these are things that you need to say as clearly as possible. Avoid company jargon such as acronyms. Avoid technical terminology as much as possible. Some people may feel reluctant to ask you to explain a technical term because they don't want to seem like dummies. Stay alert to how the customer is responding. Does the customer sound confused, skeptical, unsatisfied? Don't use a speakerphone unless you're having a conference call. When you use a speakerphone, callers get the impression that you are too busy or you consider yourself too important to give them your full attention. Say goodbye. Don't end a call abruptly. You will sound like you're trying to get rid of the customer. If you need to make notes about the call, do that right away. Don't rely on your memory to reproduce information accurately.
Perry was the new sales representative for a paper distribution company. He made his first call and answered with a greeting. He explained the company he was representing and what services were offered. All the while, he tried to maintain a pleasant and upbeat tone by smiling even though the customer couldn't see it. He continued making calls like this but ran into a snag. Apparently, Perry was not saying his name and phone number clearly enough, so customers couldn't contact him. He made sure to slow down his speech in order to speak more clearly. After a while, it became apparent that he was a natural, and all his techniques were a success.
Module 8, providing electronic customer service. A growing number of customer interactions are taking place online. Younger people in particular prefer to do much of their business online rather than in person. But online interactions have limitations. To provide excellent customer service online, you need to understand what works and what doesn't work, and how to make the most of the tools that are available to you. The advantages and disadvantages of electronic communication. Electronic communication is something that has taken off in a big way in today's society. Most people now are familiar with email, text messaging, instant messaging, and social networking sites such as Facebook and Twitter. Each of these forms of communication has definite advantages, but it is worth remembering that, relatively speaking, these forms are in their infancy. Many of us have been emailing for a decade or more now, but people have been using the telephone for much longer, writing letters for longer than that, and speaking directly, one way or another, since mankind began. There are many people who have become very used to doing things in the old ways who are not yet on the same page when it comes to electronic communication. The advantages of email are very obvious. Firstly, it's highly convenient. Unlike sending a letter, email gets there instantly. If someone is looking for a detailed, same-day response and cannot get to the telephone at the same time as you, email is absolutely wonderful as a way of getting the information across. As well as this, a telephone call costs a certain amount per minute. However long you make your email message, it will cost the same to send as a 3-line update. Once it is sent, it stays in the recipient's inbox until such time as they read it and then decide what action to take. However, as has been mentioned with telephone conversations, there is a body of opinion which holds that email is a very impersonal and cold way of communicating. Certainly, if someone wishes to pass on news that may be sensitive, email is not the best way to go about it. A telephone conversation leaves us relying on the inflection in our voice to give the correct interpretation to the words, in the absence of body language. And in email, we don't even have that inflection to rely on. Therefore, email does have its benefits and cannot be dispensed with entirely as a way of providing customer service, but its limitations need to be understood. Understanding netiquette. With the massive changes that the internet has brought to many of our lives, it is entirely unsurprising that it has brought another substantial change, that which it has wrought on the English language, and most other languages too. New words have been invented and new uses found for old words in order to describe things which simply did not exist before the internet came along and changed our world. A decade ago, pretty much no one blogged. Absolutely no sane human tweeted, and the word netiquette was unknown. Not only do we have to mind our P's and Q's, we would be well advised to keep an eye on our ats as well. If we are required to contact a customer by email, it is important to be aware that the usual standards pertaining to email do not apply. Many, if not most people, have a different way of expressing ourselves in email than we would if we were writing a letter or speaking on the telephone. Perhaps emboldened by the text messaging revolution, many people have taken the text-speak approach to writing email. Even though email is not bound by the character limits that text messaging and Twitter impose upon us, people will still try to squeeze a message into a few short lines and cut words down. But when using email in a business setting, it is essential to avoid this, as it is seen as being unprofessional. Tips and tricks. Because so much of what we do on the internet has been molded from the social aspect, which makes the medium great for most of us, the process of electronic communication has become more influenced by that social aspect. When we are communicating with customers, it is essential to remember that things are different. We all have different ways of expressing ourselves in person, on the phone, and the internet. The issue of how to correctly express oneself in online communications will be somewhat different from the traditional ways. Electronic communication is disembodied, and specifically, email can come across as being extremely abrupt. Even phrases like thank you, have a great time, and even I love you can seem quite straight and lifeless when placed in a standard font on a computer screen. It is essential to avoid this abruptness in a customer service email. Picking your words carefully is essential, avoiding jargon is fundamental. And it must be remembered that brevity in what you say should be limited to simply saying things in the simplest way. Abbreviations are not for this kind of email. When we speak out loud, our words have an inflection. They are absorbed by the listener, and then we move on. In an email, it stays there on the page and can be read into a number of different ways. It is essential to avoid saying things that are ambiguous, as this can lead to a complaint somewhere down the line if misinterpreted. Remember that in person, if you say something, the listener can then respond instantly before you move on to your next point. This means that if something you said was unclear, they can see clarification before replying. In email, this is not possible. Getting things said clearly and unambiguously, and ideally just once, is hugely important. Eliminating electronic ping pong. One of the benefits of email is its promptness. Sending an email to a friend, a customer, or a coworker can be done very quickly and will usually be read within a short time of being sent. This system means that wherever our conversation partner is in the world, we can converse in real time without the need for a huge telephone bill. Partially due to this, we have a habit of sending emails in a very cursory manner, which can lead to them being sent with information missing. This leads to a phenomenon known as electronic ping pong, with each party sending 10 emails to each other to organize or clarify something that could have been handled in the space of 2 or 3 messages.
Jeremy wanted to report the highlights of a seminar he recently attended to a foreign business colleague. Letters were far too slow, and because of the time zone differences, it was very inconvenient to the both of them to try and call. He instead decided to break out his laptop and send an email. He paid careful attention to his spelling and such, as he tended to shorten words and phrases out of habit. Once he was done drafting it, he emailed it to his colleague later that night. By morning, he had a reply from the other side of the world, all through the power of electronic communication.
Module 9, Recovering Difficult Customers. One of the hardest challenges customer service staff face is dealing with difficult customers. Sometimes customers have a legitimate reason to be upset, and sometimes they don't. In either case, customer service staff needs to be prepared for dealing with difficult customers and finding ways to win them back. De-escalating anger. No matter which method you are using to provide customer service, it is almost inevitable that at times you will have to deal with an angry customer. This is the case in even the best-run businesses and for the best customer service individuals. Sometimes, whether justifiably or otherwise, customers will get annoyed with a company and will wish to vent that anger at the first available representative. It will frequently be quite powerful anger which may boil over into verbal abuse. But the job of a customer service provider is to accept that it will happen and get on with solving the problem. The first step in doing this is to try and calm the customer down, because it will be difficult to solve a problem if they are boiling with fury, whether their anger is justified or not. The first thing you must do is speak to the customer in a calm manner and get straight to the nature of the problem. It may be the case that they want to scream and shout a bit to vent their fury, and it is up to you how long you give them to do this. Your opening gambit should be something along the lines of, "I can tell this is obviously a matter of some importance to you. I'd like to do what I can to help you." Saying, "Please calm down," or refusing to help until they have stopped shouting will simply escalate their anger. Very often, anger arises as the result of a misunderstanding. In these cases, it is essential to get to the source of the misunderstanding as quickly as possible. You should speak to the customer and allow them to see that you realize the matter is important. Do not say, "I understand" or "I sympathize." They do not want your sympathy, and they will doubt that you understand. Getting the problem laid out so that you can move forward depends on getting the customer to see that you are willing to help. From that point on, they will be a lot more ready to calm down and proceed. Establish common ground. When your job entails dealing with customers, it is inevitable that from time to time some of those with whom you deal with will be dissatisfied and in something of a mood. Your job in this case, as in all cases of customer service, is to ensure that the issues are dealt with promptly and efficiently. If this should mean that you have to listen to some ranting first of all, then it is worth accepting that this will be the case, and allowing a customer to say what they feel they have to say before getting to the heart of the problem. When all is said and done, you will be seeking to get the point across to the customer that you both have a common goal, the resolution of their problem. It stands to reason, as a result of the circumstances, that the customer will display signs of anger towards you initially. You to them are a symbol of the company for whom you work, which is also the company with which they have an issue. In the customer's eyes, you will be an opponent and someone to be overcome. Your task is seeing to it that they realize that this is not the case. You are both on the same side here as people who want to find an end to their problem. Of course, they will not see it that way at the beginning, and this is where you will need to employ good customer service. Ask questions about the problem to demonstrate that you are taking it seriously. Begin to formulate a solution and explain what that will be. Allow the customer to be part of this process and you will gain their confidence. In the long run, what you are looking for is a solution that the customer will be happy with. They may have begun your interaction by making known their dissatisfaction and being somewhat hostile towards you. But the fact of the matter is that as long as you maintain a calm demeanor and address their problem seriously, looking to work with them as you go, they will recognize you as an ally rather than an adversary, and will be a lot more ready to work with you on the issue. Once the issue is solved, they will remember you as a person who helped them and will see you and the company in a more positive light. Setting your limits. Sometimes a customer will come to you with a problem that you cannot solve. As a customer service representative, it is often expected that you will have the solution to all problems with your company's product or services at your fingertips. Of course, this is simply not possible. Sometimes a customer will come to you with a problem that is simply insolvable, and you will have to tell them so. In these cases, it can be difficult to get your point across in a way that leaves the customer satisfied in seeing your point of view, but it is important to at least try. There are many possible reasons why you may be unable to help a customer with their problem. It may be that they are simply being unreasonable. A defect may have occurred with a problem that they bought because they used it for an application it wasn't meant to perform. It may be that the product for which they are seeking help is now obsolete and that the problem is impossible to repair. In either case, the fact remains that you will not be able to grant their request, and you will need to communicate this in a way that allows them to leave on good terms. So much of human interaction is in how you say things, and customer service is much the same. If you cannot solve a problem, then it is essential to explain why this is the case and to give the customer all the help possible to find an alternative solution. The more you can do for them along these lines, the more they will understand that, although you could not solve the problem then and there, you gave it your best and you provided them with some help. Demonstrating that you are willing to do what is possible will win you points in almost every case. Managing your emotions. When dealing with a customer who is angry, it can sometimes be difficult to maintain your own composure in the face of their protests. Your job as a customer service provider is to try and solve their problem and to avoid getting agitated yourself. However, the fact is that we are all human and we all have our limits and Achilles' heels. Sometimes you may well feel that you want to respond to a customer's goading by getting angry at them. This should be avoided as it escalates the situation. Instead, you should try to remain calm and bring the customer towards your level of calm. In many cases, the extent of the customer's anger will be that they have had a problem with one of your products and they want to see it repaired. They will be angry because they spent money on something which, in their view, was not worth it. Your job in this case is to try and calm them down by allowing them to see that you will do whatever you can to help. Rather than being a faceless, nameless representative of a company which has given them a problem, you are a human being. As much as possible, you should present this human face when talking to a dissatisfied customer. Manage your emotion, and although it may be difficult, it is worth doing. Sometimes customers will seek to provoke a reaction from you as they enjoy arguing the point and feel that seeing you get angry will prove that they are right. Try putting yourself in the shoes of the customer and think about how you would respond to such a situation and what you would want to hear. Reaching an understanding may take time and effort, but it is worth doing nonetheless, particularly as getting angry can lead to getting fired.
Jordan thought he had seen it all, but boy, he was wrong. One morning, a very unhappy customer came through the office shouting and demanding help. Jordan was the only customer service representative that wasn't currently busy, so he had to deal with the man. The angry customer was shouting, but Jordan remained calm and collected. Jordan explained that he would try to help him in any way possible. The man eventually calmed down enough to have a discussion, and the issue was resolved rather quickly. It was a simple misunderstanding and was dealt with accordingly. Jordan was proud of the way he handled the situation, but would rather not have to go through it again anytime soon.
Module 10. Understanding when to escalate. Providing great customer service does not mean that you have to put up with threats, intimidation, or vulgar language from customers. If customers are out of control, you need to take over the situation and protect yourself. Dealing with vulgarity. Showing anger for many people involves expressing themselves using language which would be considered vulgar. What one person considers being vulgar may not be considered vulgar by the next person. However, there are certain words and phrases which it is agreed are to be avoided in polite conversation. When making a complaint, customers should realize that it is wise to avoid such words and phrases, as it is no more likely to get their problem solved. However, the fact remains that sometimes people will resort to such expressions of anger, and as a customer service provider, it is up to you to decide what you will allow and what you don't. The danger of allowing a customer to use a mild profanity without passing comment on it is that they will possibly decide that anything goes. If they can get away with a mild swear word, then they may try their luck with something more graphic and insulting. It is wise, even if you are not offended by profanity, to advise them that you cannot continue the conversation if they're going to use profanities. The danger otherwise is that they can begin to outdo themselves. It is not about what personally offends you. There are many of us who are not in the least offended by swearing, and there are probably few who have not used at least a mild swear word in a moment of pain, frustration, or anger. However, using them towards people is different. You do not know how every person will react, and it is a simple matter of politeness to keep language clean when dealing with official issues. Develop your own policy with profanity from customers, but always bear in mind that there are other customers around, and to allow swearing to continue or escalate does not affect just you. Coping with insults. Insults are never nice to hear, particularly when we feel that they are undeserved. When a customer begins to be insulting towards you, it can be embarrassing and it is always uncalled for. Very often, the insult will be prompted more by what you are than by who you are. They will be insulting the company by directing the insult at you, but it is no less unpleasant as a result. While some swear words are insults, not all insults are swear words, and while a profanity may not offend you, it may well be the case that an insult will contain no profanity but some extremely personal jibes. The simple fact is that you are not paid to listen to abuse. If a customer has insulted you, it is up to you how you will react. But as with profanity, it is worth remembering that, should they get away with one insult, they may feel emboldened to go further. Because most companies and individuals have a policy of not dealing with a customer who behaves in an insulting way, a customer who becomes insulting can be considered to have left aside any legitimate complaint and settled for a tirade. You may demand an apology before continuing, or you may immediately refuse to deal any further with the customer. It is unwise to simply let an insult go and behave as if the customer deserves the same respect another customer would get. As with swearing, it is wise to consider other customers in the case of a customer behaving insultingly. One frequent outcome of insults being traded or directed is that things escalate to a more confrontational pitch, something which will make customers nervous and often afraid. As you have to consider customers' comfort, it is therefore essential that you do not allow an atmosphere of hostility to persist. Dealing with legal and physical threats. Legal and physical threats from angry customers are both serious, but they call for different types of response. How to respond to legal threats. Do not attempt to offer your own interpretation of the legal issues involved. Tell the customer that you are not in a position to speak for your company on legal matters unless you are. Inform your supervisor immediately. How to respond to physical threats. When a customer makes a physical threat, your number one priority is to protect yourself and your coworkers. Get help immediately, either from your coworkers or from security personnel. Inform your supervisor immediately. Occasionally, in a situation where a customer feels that their complaint has not been dealt with satisfactorily, they will decide to bring out the big guns. Depending on the way the customer's mind works, this may be via the means of threats of legal action or threats of a more physical nature. The two types of threat differ significantly. Where legal threats are concerned, it is somewhat possible that they might have reason on their side. It is unwise in these cases to get into a legal argument with the customer. You are not there to debate issues, but to look for solutions. It is wise simply to state that you are not in a position to comment on legal matters, but that you will pass their message on. Where physical threats are concerned, it is a different matter entirely. While a legal threat may have some basis in case law, no customer has a right to threaten or direct personal violence towards any member of staff. Physical and verbal assault are both illegal and should be treated seriously. Even if your instinct is to respond to a threat by fronting up to the customer and stating that you doubt their seriousness or capability, it should be resisted as this can be considered provocation. You should always report an instance of any physical threat. Someone who threatens you might threaten anyone else, and no matter how much of a fake and a coward you judge them to be, they might follow through on the threat. In both cases, your supervisor should be advised of the threat that has been made. If the threat is physical, the last thing you want is for a potentially violent individual to be in the general area when you or your coworkers are leaving work. However much you may doubt their ability to make good on their threat, they cannot be allowed to make other people's lives uncomfortable.
Kevin was the only sales representative available at the paper distribution company he worked for at the time. He was nearly ready to leave his shift, but an angry customer came in demanding help. The customer insisted he was wronged in the utmost degree and that he would pursue legal action against the company. Kevin heard him out and thought his claim would be unjustified, but instead only told the customer that he was not responsible for the company's legal matters. The customer only got more upset and called Kevin a rude insult. Kevin informed the man that he did not have to continue to help a customer that insulted him and left for the end of his shift, thankful to be away from the man.
Module 11, 10 Things You Can Do to Wow Customers Every Time. Meeting the basic needs of customers is only the first step in providing great customer service. If you want to make a lasting impression on customers, you need to go the extra mile. Giving customers more than they expect will not only keep them coming back, but it will also inspire to tell their friends about the great service they received. 10 tips. Getting customer service right is no easy matter. This is why the companies who are good at it have such a good record of customer retention. It takes time to build a reputation for good customer services. It also takes dedication and people skills. 10 tips. Number 1, greet customers with a smile, either in person or on the phone. It may sound corny, but it's true that customers can hear the smile in your voice when you talk on the phone. Number 2, be helpful even if there's no profit in it. Make customers feel that your primary concern is being helpful to them, whether or not you are actually going to sell them something. Number 3, know your product or service. If customers feel that you don't have the knowledge they need, they will look for someone else who does. Your expertise is part of the value you bring to customer interactions. Number 4, don't make customers feel like dummies. Of course, you know more than your customers do about your product or service, but don't make them feel inadequate because they don't share your expertise. Number 5, listen to customers. In dealing with customers, listen more than you talk. Number 6, remember that employees will treat customers the way they are treated by management. If employees are treated with consideration and respect, they will be more likely to treat customers the same way. Number 7, make customers feel important and appreciated. When a customer needs help, set aside what you're doing and focus on the customer. Number 8, make things easy for customers. Think about how you can make every transaction as fast and effortless as possible for customers. Number 9, throw in something extra. Giving customers a little more than they've paid for or a little more than they expect can make them feel that you really care about their business. Number 10, say thank you. This might seem obvious, but it's easy sometimes to forget to thank customers for their business. A genuine thank you can go a long way toward creating good feelings in customers.
Camille worked for a paper distribution company as a customer service representative. Every day at work, Camille tried to put her best foot forward. One day, a customer came in with a strange complaint. He was angry about the packaging the paper came in, saying that they ordered similar packages of paper than were delivered. Camille not only resolved the matter, but also stayed overtime when her shift ended. When the matter was resolved, she made a follow-up call to make sure everything was going smoothly and left a lasting impression on the customer based on her dedication and persistence.
Although this workshop is coming to a close, we hope that your journey to improve and apply the skills that you learned is just the beginning. Please take a moment to review and update your action plan. This will be a key tool to guiding your progress in the days, weeks, months, and years to come. We wish you the best of luck.